Good morning. I'm Nisha Parker-Gibson. I'm the agriculture librarian. Probably the easiest way to get a hold of me is by email. You can also call me. You can also we can make an appointment and work together by email or by Skype or FaceTime. One way or the other. Probably email is the average best place to start because I'm in and out of the office. I'd like to talk to you today about getting to our materials and a few of the resources that we have. A lot of the materials, more and more of the materials are online these days. So you can register for interlibrary loan if you want something that's physical and borrow it. And in some cases, if you don't have a UARC email, you may need to fill out an application for circulation privileges. That's under that link there. But once you have a UARC email, there's a lot of things that you can get to through the databases and online and so on. We do have a lot of the government documents and federal stuff because we're a depository library. A lot of that is also online these days, and of course you can also use some of the USDA sites, which I'm actually not going to talk about today, but they have built some things like PubAg, which is a database of recent articles in agriculture. There's the sort of heritage database, which is Agricola, and also they have a newish repository for data that's in beta right now. It's called the Ag Data Commons, and I know some of the UARC data is in there as a test. So that's something that's going to be growing as time goes along. There's going to be more and more data sets in it. In terms of the databases, we have a bunch of them. We buy them because they are a concentrated source of the literature, and there's databases for a lot of different fields. I tell the students especially that it's like fishing in a stocked pond. You're more likely to find the stuff that you want of a level that you want and of a recency that you want if you're working with the databases. But whatever they're coming from, whoever they're coming from, they do basically the same thing. It's current awareness, so what's in journals, what's in conferences, and in a rather concentrated form. Sometimes it takes time, and sometimes you're not coming up with what you want, and that's another reason to get a hold of me, because I'm not saying I can always pull the rabbit out of the hat, but I have a pretty good track record after almost 30 years with it. So that's another reason to holler at me. Most of the databases do have subject lists or thesauruses or category terms, and they're kind of umbrella terms to pack things underneath, so that if I'm talking about it in one way and my colleague is talking about it in another way, we can find a term that's mutually agreeable, or that the database finds mutually agreeable to talk about it with. Most of the databases do allow you to put or between terms. Or gets more is one of the ways to think about it. Normally I put a parenthesis, a term, and then a capitalized or, and then the next term, and then unless I'm adding more terms, I close the paren, and that will get us those things or'd together. Otherwise it can get messy. And then quotation marks are really useful to get a phrase and find it as it's typed in, so that you're not having one word of the phrase up here and another word down here in the record. And then thirdly, truncation. Often the asterisk is used for truncation, so you can put the stem of a word and then the asterisk, and you'll get the plural forms or other forms. An easy example, even though it may not be relevant to you, is if you put in child and then the asterisk, you get child, childs, children, childhood, childing, if that was a word, things like that. A lot of different ways that it can be useful. In terms of the database, bleh. In terms of the databases, most of the time they search similarly whether or not they look different, and there often is overlap. So you may look in one database and find certain things and then find other things and some of those other things in another database. So that's nothing to worry about, that just happens. Most of the time they are using keywords, or most people when they're searching in databases use keyword searches, but the subject terms I find really useful. And also you can use field limiters, like putting the terms in and finding them in a title. And that will usually also give you a more relevant, smaller set. So terms with ands and ors versus typing in a sentence. Using the title fields or the subject fields will often get you a more precise set when you get your retrieval, and then the subject terms. So some examples. One of the databases we have is a big stack of databases called Quick Search. It's right up front when you go to the library's databases, or actually to the library's webpage, and a lot of people use it frequently because it is kind of a Google-esque search. It looks at books, it looks at dissertations, it looks at articles, and then you can spin through them and see what's useful to you. It's this right here, first tab, so you can plug your search into the search box and then check off what kind of materials you want in that list underneath, and that will make it a tighter search. Also, when you get there, like I put in rice and drought, and you'll see up at the top it says it's almost, actually it's more than 250,000 records that we got back, and they're sorted by relevance. But then, as you'll see over on the left-hand side, there's a bunch of other limiters. So, for example, what I did next in this search is I limited it to peer-reviewed materials, and then also from the last 5 years. And so then what we got is many fewer, obviously still more than you want to look at, but many fewer than the 200,000 plus. And then you can start to look through them, or you can limit it more. You could limit it by the particular publication and so on. Well, all right, some other databases that you can use. Cab Abstracts is one. That's like Agricola in the sense that it's focused on agriculture, but it's international in its scope, and it goes back further in time, so sometimes that's useful. I'm going to talk more about some things like Web of Science and SciFinder here in a minute. And then we have a bunch of others. There's Aquatic Science and Fisheries Abstracts, or Food Science and Technology Abstracts, or GeoRef. So there's a lot of different potential tools for you. I'm going to talk about Web of Science because it is big and broad and gets results of some kind for most people most days. But another feature that it has is it will often show funding sources, and that can be useful, as one understands, for tracking down some more money.